welcome to On the Rail with Techno Tawsh. Sam WOLFE in the house here at Miami Music Week. We're actually at the W Hotel in South Beach. We are going to just ask a few questions, talk about music, just get the conversation going. So
nothing is off limits.
And of course,
anything you want.
Anything, okay.
Anything.
No, so I know that you are an Atlanta-based artist, and one thing that I think is really important, especially in techno music, is that there aren't a lot of artists that are really well known from the US. So I wanted to see like what kind of contribution you think that you're putting into the techno scene, being that you're American.
That's a great question. So I think about that a lot, actually. And something that I really try and put forward is that because I see myself as, I've just been going to shows since 2009. I'm just a guy who loves music. I'm just a guy who loves electronic music, got into techno. I'm trying to contribute by showing other producers that might be a bedroom DJ, a bedroom producer, thinking about getting into it, not even knowing how to start. Here's this guy that seems like a dude just like me. He's getting to go and like fill out his dreams and travel around the world and do what he's doing. And so a lot of times I get the comment, they're like, bro, you've actually inspired me to take those next steps. Because there was one point in my life, and I know everybody's been here, so I'm not ashamed to talk about it, where when I quit, I actually became like a hater. I became like one of those internet trolls, where literally anytime I see haters on Instagram and whatnot, of course there's a kernel of truth to it, but most of the time it's like, this dude is upset with something going on in their own life, and so then you just kind of like leave a nasty comment. We've all been there. And there was a point in time where like I had friends that were doing stuff, and I didn't even want to really even go out and see them because I was like, well, this is just going to make me feel upset about why have I quit and gave up on my dreams. And that was around like 2015. And then once I realized, holy shit, what a terrible way to live. And you recognize that like I'm in that hole, dug out of that hole, went for it, am doing my thing, happy with how everything's going. But I want to basically be that inspiration for other Americans, whether it's techno or around the world, but especially for other Americans. Like Atlanta is not a city known for techno, it's a city known for hip hop. This dude is doing it. He's been all over. He's doing his thing. So if he can do it, why can't I? And that's how I, it's a way of like trying to give back, because it means something to me.
No, and that's awesome too because, again, I mean, I know, of course, there's a lot of music movement that came out of the States, but it's definitely something that you see a lot more of the techno artists that are more popular or in the top 10, Beatport and all that are coming from Europe. So it's cool to see somebody like you that's kind of putting a name out there, and not only that, but exposing more of the techno genre to the U.S.
Well, I said it before to one of my buddies, a really good friend of mine, Ricardo, and he makes melodic techno, but when I heard his melodic techno and progressive, he has this kind of like sharp bite to his music, and it sounded a lot like what I was trying to do with mine. I said, bro, no pun intended because last name Wolf, whatever, but it's that American bite, I love that aggressive fucking when it comes to the music. So honing in that style where a lot of it comes from that, bass music coming up and whatnot, that's super aggressive. It's too much a lot of the times, but that bite and that aggressive energy, like that lives with me. So that kind of coming out into the style of techno that I've been doing, I would say that's kind of putting the American taste or palette for a lot of people that aren't represented in the techno scene, and putting that out there for the rest of the world to either like or dislike.
Sure, true. And actually, yeah, of course, we hear that a lot with your music. And we just played your set from Slovenia. That was freaking fire, man.
April 9th, the live set is coming out. Hour and a half, full recording. It's amazing. We got like 4 different camera angles. I'm really proud of this one. I spent some time editing myself, so a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. That's coming out soon.
Awesome. Yeah, I was telling them, I was like, we were having some connection issues earlier, so I was like, I'm sure he's going to post it somewhere, so I'll share a link on my social media.
It's coming, baby. It's coming.
No, fire set. So actually, you work a lot with UMEK. Yes. I don't know if you call him like a mentor, but...
He's one of my best friends, and he's absolutely been a mentor. Absolutely. Yeah.
And what is like your relationship like with him, and what is it like releasing on his label, and kind of how that all came about?
So when you're a young producer, a lot of people go through this of like, okay, is this cool? And you kind of like second guess yourself, and a way to figure out if you're on the right path. At the end of the day, if you think it's cool, then it is fucking cool. But at the same time, it needs to get some kind of acceptance or appeal from people that you respect and respect their opinions, and from the greater audience as a whole. So when I was going through that of like, should I use this sound? Should I use these plugins? Is this the kind of taste palette, whatnot? Am I going too overboard and too aggressive and whatnot? Having someone who's a 30-year veteran be able to break it down and be like, this sucks in my opinion. And at the end of the day, it's just an opinion, so it's not, statement of fact or whatever. this sucks, this is no good, this is what I would do, blah, 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 blah. Then you do it over and over again, and as you're putting in the 10,000 hours, you just kind of hone in the skills and get better and better and better. So to have that mentor has been extremely helpful. It's really helped to design, and now he sends me music for his feedback and whatnot. And like he's like, I don't like to send music. I have one person. You're now number two. I send it to two people because too many opinions. You know what they say about opinions, but it can really like crowd your judgment. Where if you think it's cool and you know what you're doing, then just go with it. But you know, then give him feedback is like a huge. All right, so you really respect my opinion that much. That kind of builds your confidence of like, all right, and it makes you faster in the studio. It makes you quicker with your decisions because at the end of the day, we got to pump out a lot of good music. So, got to get to work.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I was watching his interview with Danny Avila actually.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it was a good
cool
one.
Too. Yeah.
And UMEK was saying how he doesn't really go into like too much of a library of music that's outside of his genre because he doesn't want to be kind of like twisted in the mind with that. Yeah.
So I understand his point, and there's a slight bit of disagreement there, but basically I know exactly what he's trying to say. And English is a second language, so he's Slovenia. Like, in my opinion, what he's trying to say is that I want to be known for one thing and one thing only. I want to be known for the UMEK sound. So if I want to be known for the UMEK sound and I'm trying to push the UMEK sound further, why would I want to complicate things by listening to what this guy's doing, what that guy's doing, what this genre's doing, what this genre's doing? Because then I'm just pulling in from other people, which has merit, but I think what he's saying is that I'm known for the UMEK sound, I'm going to push the UMEK sound, I'm always developing the UMEK sound, so I listen to my own music. And that's kind of the point that he's making. What I personally found is that as I'm trying to, evolve my sound, I've only been doing this, my first record came out in 2020, I listened to the first stuff that I put out compared to the stuff that I'm putting out right now, and I hear a world of difference. But I also understand that, like, okay, I want to keep getting better. And if I'm going to keep getting better, what are certain things that are working that I would then want to do on my own and take and do it in my own kind of fashion and repackage it in the Sam WOLFE aggressive way? So listening to other genres absolutely does help me. I love all the genres. So we have a little bit of a disagreement there, but I totally understand his mindset because he can do that. He's afforded himself the ability to do that as a 30-year veteran. He's allowed to be like, this is what I'm fucking doing, and this is what I've become known for. So I'm still kind of, getting my chops together and figuring it out more so.
Yeah, sure. And I know that in your earlier years with music inspiration, let me get that one. I'm like, cheers.
Let's go.
I know that earlier you were listening to a lot of dubstep, and I was curious what kind of was your inspo with dubstep, and why didn't you take the dubstep route? Why did you go into techno?
Well, that's a great question. So, did you ever have a phase with a different genre of music?
Of course I did. It wasn't dubstep, but it was others.
So, like, again, being from Baltimore, if anybody's from the East Coast, and like that really had a stronghold in 2009, 2010, like we were like going crazy listening to Excision and Skrillex and some other names I'm not going to mention in the car, and just going crazy back then. And then it just came into Electro House with Porter Robinson. He was like, say my name. I'm like, damn, this is fucking crazy. And then it went into trance in 2012. And then trap became a thing when like it was labeled trap, even though trap was always a thing. And Skrillex was like making trap music with Fosterdamus. Back into bass music. Then Big Room was a thing. Then Tech House. So I've done all the genres. But that just happened to be the first one. And honestly, what I realized is I've done a lot of thinking. Dubstep and psychedelic music as a whole, someone like Ellis Dream, it's a lot of round sounds, a lot of yees and yoys and gurgles and whatnot. We lose a stream, we lost the battery. It's all good. It's a lot of round sounds. It's a lot of yees and yoys and wum, 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 wum. And because of my own psychedelic experiences, that has always kind of had a foothold in my brain. And I'm like, all right, I like this because of my own stuff. But what I'm realizing is what tends to be a little bit more sexy are the sharper sounds, the more triangular sounds, if you will, the more so you hear like Afterlife, they do those stabs with where they do the stuttering LFOing effect all the time. That has its own kind of sexiness to it. And I noticed that, I might like one, but I also like the other. So I'm kind of learning more and more and more and more. Like, do I always want to be doing this? Because this only appeals to a certain group of people. And there's a whole other much larger group of people that I also like this, that maybe I want to make some sounds that they vibe with a bit too as well. So,
do you think any of the dubstep elements are in your music? Like, do you think it influences your music production at all? Or is it kind of...
Absolutely, yeah. But the thing is that going back to that realization of like a round sound versus more of like a sharp kind of ump sound, there is an entire community that loves those yeah, blah, 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 kind of things like it's talking to you. But also I feel like that's a community where you do rely a lot on a psychedelic kind of experience to be in that moment. And then when you're in that moment and you have those kinds of whatever, it really hits with you. Maybe if you've never had that, it's not going to speak to you as much, and that's why dubstep and bass music is still a very niche thing. In North America, it's pretty mainstream in electronic music, but it doesn't appeal to everybody. So it's finding that balance and figuring out, like, hey, I am a jack of all trades. I do love all these different things. How am I going to tailor what the message that I want to get across so that it's as receptive to as many people so that I can affect as many people as possible with the music that I'm trying to make and the message I'm trying to get across.
So earlier you were doing some throwbacks like the Porter Robinson times and all that.
Yeah.
So I know that
I still love Porter.
I know that you had actually done a show with I.O. back in the day, and I actually wanted to bring that up really quickly because I met him at EDC Orlando before his passing, and I'm just curious if you have any sort of, I don't know, anything that you could kind of do a tribute to I.O. and maybe talk a little bit about mental health in the industry.
It's kind of a crazy story. So, well, here's the thing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. He died from Hashimoto's, which is like, I believe, and again, I apologize in advance if I'm misspeaking here, that's like a very preventable, curable, like you can manage and live with that. And I think that the reason that he died from Hashimoto's, because everyone thought suicide or something like that, but I think that he died because he had this thing, and because he was so on the grind and touring so much, he never got it checked out. But my understanding is, and I could be totally wrong, if you were to get it checked out, you can manage it and not succumb to it fatally. So the key takeaway there is that we always feel like go, 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 go. Got to be touring, got to be flying to this. I'm hot right now, so I got to keep the wheel going. I got to keep going. But literally, if you do that so much where you have an illness that could potentially take your life but is very preventable, you're not even focused on it. You got to take some time to like really look out for yourself, you know? Like I've seen it personally where it's just like, all right, I need to be working out more. You can't just let these excuses pile up to where you look in the mirror and you're like, I don't like, what I'm doing to my body. But just on the I.O. story, obviously he was on track to be that American face of techno that was bridging the trance sound and everything like that. It was a crazy story because I've actually never told this before other than to a couple close friends. I just bought CDJs. Like literally I got 4 CDJs. So I don't want to rent them out to anybody because they're my brand new babies and whatnot. And the club that he played at, it was 3 nights before he died on a Friday. So it was like his second to last show ever. The club GM, guy Jalen, hit me up and he was like, hey, we only have the Tour ones. Those are the fancy ones with a screen on each one they use for like Armin van Buuren or something like that. And he's like, I.O. doesn't want to play on the Tour ones. I need to borrow your CDJs. And I was like, I don't want to rent them. He's like, no, I'm like, all right, whatever. So I let him use my CDJs, and then literally I.O. played on them, which is kind of crazy. And then 2 days later, he was dead, and I still have that set of CDJs. And I was like, damn, that's like a crazy, weird coincidence. So I always looked at that, and like every time I like use the CDJs to practice, I think about that, and I'm like, damn, like don't let it go too far. You know what I'm saying? Like value what you got, because this guy was on the path, and he was touching so many lives and everything, and then taken so abruptly. It's just not, fair. It's
I
not,
know, and super talented, of course. I mean, when I saw him in EDC Orlando, he was playing main stage that year too. So it's just like, it's crazy how techno's evolved.
The year before.
I
heard he did the art car the year before, and then next year popped off and then did the main stage, which is amazing. That's crazy.
So what else can we expect from you, Sam WOLFE? I know you've got, I'm sure, a bunch of projects coming up in the next year, and you're just on your rise to success.
Trying very much. So cool collabs coming out. I got one coming out with T78 I'm really stoked on. I have one coming out with Cosmic Boys I'm really stoked on. We are at the Oliver Heldens Heldy Pool Party, and I have a record that we are very close to getting on HILOMATIK. We just have to figure out what we're going to do with the sample, how to clear it, yada, yada, yada. So be on the lookout for that. And I would just say a continued progression and evolution of the sound where I want people to know that, like, hey, this dude may have always been making music that I really mess with, but, like, I'm really starting to fuck with this heavy now. So I'm always trying to improve the craft and just double down on making more bangers. Because I've been in this hot streak where, like, all right, I got this formula where I'm, like, really starting to figure it out and pump them out quick. So we're just not going to stop.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, speaking of samples, I wanted to ask you this as well.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of people are putting together tracks when you're producing. Where does that choice come in? Or maybe it's not a choice when you decide to use a sample for a track rather than an original vocal?
Yeah, so to be honest, it's way easier to find a sample now and use an AI vocal remover to extract the stems, because it used to be, because I don't know, shout out to, does anyone remember Girl Talk? He was like the first mashup DJ back when we were in college. Yeah, Girl Talk, yeah. So when he was making mashups, it was a much bigger deal to be able to extract a vocal, or an acapella rather, out of, you had to use, it was a whole thing. I remember trying to do it. It's not that easy. Now it couldn't be easier. You really put the song into an AI vocal remover, boom, it takes the stems out super clean, you polish them up inside the DAW, done, good to go. So now, because there's so much cool royalty-free music and it's so easy to find something other than what's on Splice and sample things out, that's why you're seeing the rise, because AI is being used as a tool. So, because lyrics have a much better chance of hitting as like a song and like a hit, you know, like that's why you're seeing it being injected so much more. But where does the decision come with? That's like a Rick Rubin kind of question. It's just a matter of taste and what your taste is. And if you're like, okay, I like this, then you hear it inside your head. Okay, like here's how I'll stutter the vocal. Here's what I can do with it. Here's the beat that I'll build around with it. But that's just, you know, as they say in mixing, like use your ears. That's the answer. You just got to use your ears. It's just a matter of taste. And that's kind of the cool thing, because no AI will ever really be able to replicate, hopefully, knock on wood, your taste. And that's what makes you unique in the studio. And no matter what, like I'll try and sound like other people, I always end up sounding like myself. And that's kind of a reassuring thing, because I'm like, it's going to be hard for somebody else to sound like me. And so that's kind of what makes us us.
And where do you stand with AI and music and producing?
You know, it's coming for everybody. So again, using it as a tool, staying awake on like being some of the first to adapt the tools. At the end of the day, you know, we have movie editing software, and not everyone wants to pick up Premiere and become a movie editing person. You know what I'm saying? Like we can all, name anything. But not everybody's just going to want to come and pick up a computer and learn how to use the AI to then make music. You know what I'm saying? So, like, yes, it's going to make things a whole lot easier, which is cool. But there's always going to be the people that figure out how to go the extra mile to differentiate themselves from all the cookie cutter stuff. So that's just what you got to do, and don't lose sleep over it. Because at the end of the day, we're doing this because we love it. It's for fun. So
yeah, for sure. And one of the last questions I want to ask, because I know that we talked about UMEK collabs and working under him. What about Yellowheads? Because I feel like they don't get talked about enough as well. And actually, this is one of the things that I love about my show and what I do is that I want to highlight all these artists that if you Google people like you guys, which there was a significant amount on you, but there's a lot that you look up and there's nothing to be found on any of these people, man. And so that's why I'm like, we got to know more about you guys, and we got to dig a little bit deeper.
I'm glad you threw that out. Okay, so the Yellowheads, that's such a funny thing. They were the first people to sign my first record, so I owe them a ton. And then literally they were the first like big artists that got to do a collab with, and they were like, we really like this sound because it was that rah, aggressive kind of American bite thing I was talking about. And they're like, no one's really doing this in their European kind of techno from Spain. And so basically, I owe them a ton. And from the get-go, you know, they always were doing the mask thing. And it was very recent that they decided, hey, we're going to take the masks off. We want you to see our faces. We're trying to get a little bit more personal and whatnot. But that's a great example of two guys that were like, hey, we're going to create our own label. Then we're going to stamp this sound and let people know that, like, this is our sound. We're going to curate a lot of music. Joey Hauser got one of their big breaks on Reload Black. So they've released some large artists in the past that have gone on to do some very big things in the peak time scene. But yeah, I mean, they're just touring the world and doing their thing, and God bless them. You know, I haven't spoken to them in a hot minute. I talk to their manager Mary every now and then, and I just saw that my homie Marie Vaughn, she's cool. I love Marie. She just did a collab with them, which is dope, and they had some big remix that was in the Beatport top 10 for a while, not too long ago. So they're doing their thing. But yeah, check them out. They Reload Black. It's had a lot of good releases over the years.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, if there's any last words you want to say or anything that you feel like you didn't share or talk about that you find important.
I mean, there's a lot to say there. I would just say, going back to the first thing that you asked me, like, if this is something that you're thinking about doing, hopefully the story and what I'm talking about kind of inspires you to be like, all right, this guy's doing it. There's so much space in this industry. Like, I used to think when Zed started to pop off in 2011, oh man, I was listening to him before Skrillex found him, and now he's blowing up. I could never do this. There's no room. It's not true at all. There's so much space. The electronic music scene, the techno scene is only getting bigger, and there's so much space. Just figure out how to be unique is what I meant to say. Figure out how to be unique, be yourself, and just do what you love, and other people are going to resonate with it. And if you're spending time playing video games and feel like you're wasting time in other areas, pick up Ableton or another DAW, and that'll be the best video game you ever learn.
Right, exactly. Is there any sort of goal, whether it's, certain collab or certain festival or any sort of thing that you feel like you want to accomplish pretty soon?
I really want to play some big festivals and get a record on Drumcode. So, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, hopefully we'll make it happen. And when that happens, we're definitely playing it here on the show.
Gotta bring the heat.
For sure. Thank you so much, Sam WOLFE, for joining me on the show.
Great to meet you. Great to meet you in person.
Same. You too.
Disruption.